Hello, good morning. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Aaron. Welcome back to the channel, where I talk about all things in the hobby. Today is Monday, and that that means Thursday, 8 o'clock Pacific, 8 p.m. Pacific. We have Real Collectors, Fake Investors, myself and Jodo Jake. Maybe I can start moving it up to 7. 8 o'clock's kind of late. We'll figure it out. 8 o'clock, link is down below. Last week we couldn't make it. We had something come up. So hopefully you can tune in this Thursday. It's makes me feel good inside when we get people reaching out, asking like, is everything okay? They're really disappointed that the show wasn't happening. Just goes to show, man. We are a good, tight-knit community of people who like to talk about cards. Anyway, today's video is about pace and taking your time, and there's really no rush. My drive is long today. It's like 40 plus minutes. Usually I can get by in like 30 to 35. 40 plus minutes usually means it's going to be a little bit longer. So I figured I'd just take the opportunity to record. And if I use this footage, great. If I don't, also great. It's fine. Hopefully you guys liked the upload on Friday about the invisible hand. I was kind of worried there that I was going to get abducted for sharing, spilling the secrets, but turns out I'm good. Hope you guys enjoy that. Hopefully it was informative and helpful, and maybe there's a little bit more we can talk about that topic. Okay, so let's talk about today's topic. This weekend I went to a show in the Bay Area, East Bay Card Show. I would say it's probably one of the largest shows that we have. It is probably the largest show that we have. 200 plus vendor tables. It was at the Hyatt Regency in a big, it's not a big, it's like an event, like a ballroom, giant ballroom. I went, my wife allowed me to use one of my credits. No, I'm kidding. I asked my wife last minute and she was like, down, go do your thing. So I'm grateful I have her support. And, really for me, the name of the game this weekend was I needed to buy a bunch of slabs for some friends. They have their businesses, they have their like streamer products, whatever. And that's why I went, is to buy. And typically, like, I a lot of the allure of going to shows over time, for me, it's like kind of dwindled because one, I don't have as much time as I used to. So when I go, it's usually for like half the show or less than half the show. So I'll go in. If I'm going in at the start, I'll typically go straight to the back or the areas of the event center where I know it gets the busiest later. Talk to some vendors, go through some stuff. But I'm largely in part not really browsing through binders as much as I want to, and condition checking cards because I just don't have the Card Party honestly was an anomaly for me. I typically don't have that much time, and I can't really dedicate myself to taking my time when I go to these regular shows. I have to have like a very specific goal to come in and that kind of thing. So I went in, did my rounds, looked at every single table. I think this show it's like 40% are sports, and so a large majority are Pokemon. Honestly, though, a lot of the assortment these days, a lot of the cards, a lot of things that you find are more or less the same. Popular sets, same graded cards, that kind of thing. And so, I speed ran through, and I just got like this very dull and numb feeling where I just wanted to leave. You know what I mean? And I was reflecting on this where I realized that like I think I have numbed myself a bit to some of the parts of the hobby. And this is not I think it's the natural cycle of like going to shows, you eventually vend, you sell, you buy. And I think the hardest part about being in the hobby for a long time is trying to figure out how to always keep yourself engaged and interested when it's not just about the money. I've a new set of goals, I guess, or things I'm trying to complete. I'm going to get one of every Nido family card. That's Nido Queen, Nido King, English primarily. If there's the stamped reverse holo versions, I will take those. If not, I will take the regular versions, or I would just take the whatever version is available. Some Japanese. I have my electrodes and my Voltorbs that I've been, kind of deprioritized, I think, for a while. I bought a couple of those this past weekend, image here. And my champs, Machokes, any card along those lines that I don't have, I'll gladly buy if it's for cheap. Just add it to the binder. Like, that's the stuff I try to do to keep myself occupied. And, again, as I'm reflecting on this past weekend, I think, like, I very much think that if you just think about the hobby long term, how do you get from point A to point B, and point B being 30th anniversary, 35th anniversary. And then it starts to like rescope. You start to reshift how you think about your daily engagement, where you just take your time and do these things at your own pace, right? And there's so much going on these days where it feels like you're always missing out. And like, what's really funny is last week I bought Destin Rivals at $3.90. Sorry, I think I'm stuck in the middle of this crosswalk. Right? Or not $3.90, $3.70, and it felt like a steal. This week I see it at $3.90, just sitting on vendor tables, and I can't help but think, why would I buy it for this price right now? That's how fast some of this mindset stuff shifts. And what I just said is absurd, obviously, but to each their own. Even for me, sometimes you just get so into things that you overthink what's going on. And if I were to start over, let me think about this. If I were to start over, I would create very clear goals. I'm not a goals person, by the way, not by any means. Around collecting from day one. Collecting, I would budget around that. Investing, it's part of the hobby, so be it. Budgeting around that. And just like making sure I have enough capital, so enough money to conquer both. And I've mentioned before with like the investing topic, I wouldn't buy like onesie twosie things here and there. I would actually say like 5% or 10% of the money that I make, I want to put aside until I have enough. Maybe that's several hundred, maybe that's several thousand. And then I would go out and buy cases of certain sets at a discount, or multiple booster boxes of a set, hopefully at a discount, offer people cash. And that's how I would actually invest. But where I've come to and how I got to this point was a lot of stop and go, a lot of impulsivity, a lot of learning the hard way, falling on my face, buying the wrong thing, getting wrecked on condition, buying sets too early. As I mentioned weeks ago, I bought Phantasmal Flames at damn near market price. That's what I would do. Is just like chunk up the goals, build up enough capital to tackle each of the goals, and I wouldn't constantly be buying. I think that's probably it. Is when you're constantly looking at like market price and what to buy, where's Destin Rivals today versus last week? Oh, it hasn't really moved. You start to form your own sentiment around an interpretation of like how things are going, and like nothing's changed in the last week, right? Can we agree on that? There's nothing that has actually changed, especially in the modern market, in the last week. However, I for some reason feel like it has, and I don't have any way of proving it outside of that's how I feel. So, going back to the show, as I'm looking around at all the people that are vending, a lot of new faces, a lot of the same inventory, I just get this sense of like, maybe it's okay to take a break and just check out for a little bit. Focus back more on Japanese. One of the things I used to do religiously, And I have some friends, my buddy Adrian, shout out Adrian, and some other friends know every single week you go on to the Japanese websites, you look at stock, inventory, you look at auctions, and then you go through every permutation of every single auction type that you think, you bookmark those auctions, and then come Saturday, I guess it would be Saturday AM, 5 a.m. PST, or Sunday AM, 5 a.m. PST. You build your schedule around making sure that you are awake for those auctions and when they end, so that you can continue to bid them up or bid and win. Like that's stuff I don't really do anymore. And truth be told, if you think the hobby is saturated and you think there's not a lot of opportunity, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, I will tell you that is not the case. There is still a lot that is not tapped into, that people just don't. This is where curiosity really benefits you. People don't look up, people don't think about, people don't, they're not exposed to it because there's no YouTube content, there's no people talking about these things. And, honestly, like, some of the stuff that I buy on the Japanese front, I will probably only talk about them once we're at the point of complete saturation. Once I know there's no opportunity that I'm giving away or losing. And it sounds a little selfish, I agree. But it honestly is true. Like, I think there's a lot of entitlement around like information. But if you're genuinely curious, and one of my favorite pastimes I've talked about in the past was, getting a coffee early in the morning, going to Bulbapedia, looking up every single Japanese and English promo from Sun and Moon, X and Y, whatever era, right? And going through line by line, looking at each of the cards, where it came from, what its significance is, how to obtain it. Come on, buddy. Let's go, buddy. And then looking up like the cards that you like, that you're interested in. Oh wow, this card is $30 raw, but in the PSA 10 it's $250. Like that, there are still a lot of cards, especially in Japanese. I shouldn't say a lot of cards. There are many cards. 30, 40, $50 near mint, light played. You grade it, you get an 8, 9, or 10. You can build your collection that way. You can't really build a scalable business, but you can make a good chunk of change doing that, right? And it's probably never going to get optimized for the masses. So it's going to take some sweat equity and, really putting your face in the things and just figuring out like, what is this card? What is it worth? And, how do you obtain it? One example that comes up as of late is actually Armored Mewtwo. So if you're unaware, Armored Mewtwo in English is a very, very low pop card. It comes out of a collector's tin. It's hard to grade because the tin, I think, the promo is stuck in the tin and like a bunch of plastic, and so it like wrecks the corners and stuff. But in Japanese, right? Sorry, in English, Armored Mewtwo is like a $5,000 card. Very expensive. In Japanese, the card came out as part of the, I think it's part of the Mewtwo Strikes Back movie promo. In Japan, I think they did like a re-release. I forget. But in Japan, it was very plentiful because it came as a sealed promo with like this, I forgot the name of the game. It's like a sealed puck. It's an arcade game that they play over there. Basically, it's kind of like Yu-Gi-Oh! You place a bunch of these pucks down, except it's Pokemon, and then every puck has a Pokemon. It summons a Pokemon. You're like fighting the computer or other players. It never made its way to English. Anyway, Armored Mewtwo. This card in Japanese was incredibly easy to get. I remember when I first got back into the hobby, you could buy stacks of these cards new for like $20. And granted, the cards out of the wrapper, sometimes the pucks would cause like indents and like whitening and that kind of thing on the card. So, but you obviously can't always check for that. But anyway, this card was like incredibly cheap. Now, since English Ugh. Stupid Bob. English Armored Mewtwo is at 4 or 5K, whatever it is. The Japanese one, which used to be like $100 PSA 10, it's skyrocketed to 500 plus. That was a card and a play and an opportunity that sat there for a long time. And it checks all the fundamentals, right? It's a promo, Armor Mewtwo, special type Pokemon, exclusiveness, Mewtwo, So these things are like, obviousness is hindsight in a lot of ways. Oh my gosh, people, can I please? In hindsight, obviousness is obvious in hindsight. Happy Monday. I'm just reminded of like, that's the kind of stuff. I've never owned a PSA 10 of this card. I've tried to grade a lot of these cards and source them nowadays, but it's you're not going to find 10s raw. But I'm just reminded, and I call it that one example because that's the kind of stuff that can still be discovered across the hobby, English to Japanese, Japanese to English, that all it takes is a little bit of effort and a little less distraction on the other things that one person might be doing. And as I go to this, let me try to come full circle on this. I go to this show and I just realized that like I'm not really getting much out of this show this time. I'm maybe a little burnt out, to be honest. Let me just go and hole up back into my my hobbit hole for a bit and tone down the in-person activations, and that's okay. And I just reminded that the success in the hobby, I think everyone can define that on their own. What's important to you, what matters to you. But I've learned that like getting far and long is the most important thing. Sustainability. Don't burn yourself out. Consistency over intensity. Take your time. Don't overspend. Don't over leverage. It's okay to miss out. All of these things are kind of more or less the same topic, right? And I don't know. I think I just wanted to share that I'm feeling it more these days than I'm feeling it more in the last week than I thought I would. And it's okay. It's is this a sign that the market's changing? I have no idea. That's not what I'm trying to illustrate at all or explain at all. But when you take someone like me and you multiply me 1,000 times or 100 times or 10 times, right? And I can tell you that if I say that like, I'm kind of I think things are slowing down, I'm getting burnt out, whatever, and more people say the same thing, then general sentiment it spreads. That sentiment's going to spread, right? But I think the grand point in all this is it's really important to get involved and figure out your own path and figure out your own way. Figure out why you enjoy the hobby. Growth over, what did Jake say the other day? Growth over comparison. Figure out what's going to make you excited, what's going to continue to feed that curiosity engine, your eagerness to learn about certain cards and promos and sets, right? And, I don't think being an investor is part of that. I think being an investor, a card investor, can benefit people, but it shouldn't be the day in, day out thing that people pay attention to. I remember, Rudy going on rants talking about how it's an insane time where people literally look at market price of sets on a day-to-day basis, and then sentiment is formed based on what changes overnight. Like, that's never really been done before. And I think if you allow a lot of that information to get into your brain, that's all you're going to think about. going back to my previous video that I uploaded. Ooh-wee. Sorry, this guy just braked hard. Going back to my video I uploaded on Friday around complete ownership of the things that you do. I don't think people understand. You control the things that you consume, both digitally, so content, who you watch, music, all that stuff. And also physical, like what you eat, what you drink. Like, there's still like this victim attitude that exists that maybe it's generational. I don't really know. But at what point do you just say, like, I don't want to, I'm going to just not listen. I'm not going to tune in. This person is not for me. I don't agree with this sentiment. I'm going to click away. I think everyone has that ability to decide what the hobby means to them. But until you figure that out, I don't think most people are going to get to that point where we're at the 35th anniversary or we're at the next era. I think most people are just going to continue to chase what they see. And, the sooner you can break away from that and challenge yourself into figuring out what you really like, the better off you're going to be. There's very few things that I regret in the hobby. And I think, honestly, it comes from understanding that there's nothing that I bought in the past that I can't reacquire. And also removing comparison from how I think about the hobby day to day. Yeah, there's some people out there, I look at their collections and I'm like, a part of me thinks, like, if I had only done X, Y, and Z, then I would be at points 1, 2, and 3. It's natural. It's a natural feeling, right? But that's like on a bad day. On a good day, I feel good. I feel good about how much Sun and Moon I sold. I feel good about how much Japanese stuff I still hold. I feel good about selling Scarlet and Violet. I feel good about holding Sword and Shield. I feel good about the decisions I made because I really believe, at the end of the day, I believe in those decisions. And, I think the larger point, the bigger point of all this topic today is that this is not a race. It's a long marathon of enjoyment, of seeking and figuring out what drives enjoyment for you and what you like to collect. And if investing is your thing, cool. What you like to invest in, and just being okay that you don't have to be part of what everyone else is doing. You don't have to buy Destin Rivals. You don't have to buy Brilliant Stars because it's a good price. It's a no-brainer buy. You can decide what works best for you. Now I've come to the great conclusion that I'm going to keep all my Sword and Shield. I already sold all my Sun and Moon minus my ETBs in one booster box of Unbroken Bonds. I'm going to keep all my Japanese stuff, or most of it at least, from Sword and Shield and from Sun and Moon. And if you put the analysts out there will probably hyper critique the things that I've sold and say, like, why would you sell Team Up at 6,500? It's like, because I felt good about selling at that price. But you could have gotten like 12,000. It's like, but I felt good about selling at that price. Yeah, but you don't understand. You could have made like, 80%, but I felt good about selling. It's just like, that is, look, feelings are not for everyone. I get it. But when you feel good about the decisions you make, that trumps anything else. No amount of money, actually not true. Some amount of money can help fix that, but always be on edge and anxious, and checking prices and comparing and wanting to acquire and spend and leverage. It's just like, it is a surefire way to just blow your dopamine receptors and not enjoy things. And I think that's probably what I had been going through in the last week. And you just needed to slow down a little bit. Just needed to post card party, which was an amazing high. Whole nother level of high. Just needed to just tone it down a little bit. Focus on selling, getting stuff out the door, building up capital, finding things that I'm really interested in buying, buy them. I have an amazing, by the way, Gyarados promo coming. Once I get it, I will share what it looks like. But, what I think is probably the best Gyarados card of all time. Okay. Commuter bus. What I think is probably the best Gyarados artwork of all time. And I spent, $2K for it. Raw. It should 10. Let's see. If it gets a 9, it'll be at 2,500. But I'm still in the money either way. And it's a card that I've always, I shouldn't say always, I've wanted this card for a long time. And I didn't buy it at 2K. I didn't buy it at 3K in a PSA 10. And now I have the opportunity to grade one myself. And so hopefully, fingers crossed, it gets there. Just stuff like that, like feeling great about the decisions you make supersedes any level of portfolio worth, and it quells any level of anxiety that you might have. Anyway, bit of a different video today. Happy Monday. Today is not a pretty day. It's cloudy, maybe a little bit of rain. That's all I got for you guys. Take your time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And enjoy yourselves. Because if you don't enjoy it, if you don't enjoy the hobby, no one can enjoy it for you. It's okay. Put down the TCG market apps and just enjoy your cardboard. That's all I got for you guys. Have a good one. I'll catch you next one.